start with Kevin. Obviously, first workout for pitchers and catchers today, but looked like you had pretty much the whole squad out there. What does it say to have the whole group out here already, ready to go?
Yeah, there's certainly an eagerness. You feel it. I mean, a lot of these guys have been out for a week or multiple weeks, and I think with the WBC and the earlier intake of players, I mean, pitchers in today's game are just coming in a little bit more. And then on the position player side, I mean, Cammy, Johnny, those guys, they want to go show well. So they're going to get as many live at bats as possible. But I was really encouraged with everybody that threw today. I had seen, some bullpens. Those are my first live settings, but how can you not be encouraged when, Joe Boyle is pumping 100 miles an hour and Rass is kind of looking where he picked up from last year. So happy with the mindset of the guys for sure.
Shane talked this morning just about the process of the past 2 years and how he's sort of matured through that time. Have you seen any indications of that? I mean, has there been a change in his perspective on his career, on his life going through that ordeal?
Go ahead.
I mean, look, Shane has dealt with a lot, certainly injury related. And then, his father's passing, which I believe he talked about today. That's going to change anybody. And talking to Shane and hearing Shane, interacting with him over the last couple days, I sense almost like a relief of health, positivity. He's enjoying things a little bit more. I don't see the him putting added pressure on himself. I watched his bullpen the other day, and I know Kyle had seen a couple back in Tampa, but it's about as free and easy as, what I recall when he was a healthy pitcher. I think we'll see more, the competition getting on a live BP setting, pitching in a game out here. It'll be every step for him. 2 years is a long time missed, but he's really, really good, and we're excited to have him and his mindset back.
Okay, I'm talking with Shane, obviously, and the other guys in the rotation. What do you like most about that group? You have obviously new additions and Steven and as well as Nick coming into as well, Nick Martinez.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think with Rass and Pep, they really pride themselves on making as many starts as possible last year, getting to 30 starts. That was really, really important. So the workload is built up there. With Matt's and Shane in particular, there's going to be some early season managing of their workloads. I don't think we have a plan laid out yet, but we'll have constant fluid conversations with them, with Erik and I and Kyle for sure. And then with a guy like Nick Martinez, who we just signed, this is a guy that has a track record of providing some workload. So I think it's a good balance, but we're not going to get away from what we've done for many, many seasons, and that's being very mindful of their workloads out of the gate, all 5 of them, and that 6 and 7 starters, same thing. So we'll have a lot of conversations as we always do.
Erik, just how would you, assess the roster construction from when we saw you there in October and then all the changes that you made right now and the shifting that has happened?
Yeah, it was certainly more than anticipated going into the offseason. That's been raised a few times. I think set the expectation this might be a quiet winter. When we wrapped up last year, and I think we thought it would be, we ended up, more trades, more activity than we anticipated. I think ultimately where it's left us is, as has been the case, this is my 20th season here. 2008 was my first full-time year. In every single one of those years, we've wanted to give that year a chance to compete and to win. Just believe it's the right thing to do, right? And some years you have a little bit of better chance than others, but you always give each team a chance while making sure that the future teams also have a good chance, right? And that's why we've been able to win, the third most games in baseball over that time period. When I look at the totality of this offseason, I think Nick Martinez, Lux, Fraley, Mullins, Matz, we've brought in some veteran guys and some guys to fill some spaces that have emphasized this season. But we've also added a lot of talent that has a chance to impact this team this year. Jacob Melton, Ben Williamson, but for many years beyond. And that's important to us. So I do believe it's a different look. I think the ultimate composition of this team, it's always health depending, but I think we got a chance for a good rotation. I think the underlying information in the pen last year was much stronger than the results, certainly in highest leverage. And offensively, you got 3 offensive studs, in Cammy, Jonathan, and Yandy, with dynamic athletes and really good defense behind them. And that's been a recipe when our teams haven't been given a lot of optimism out of the gates. That's usually the recipe that tends to surprise, and we're going to do everything we can to support this group to make that happen.
And then just Erik, from your construction, how much does Tropicana Field play into that? And then Kevin, is there going to be a little bit of an adjustment period getting back inside Tropicana Field and getting used to all the sight lines and everything that comes along with it?
Yeah, it's big. I think, look, last year's group, nobody made excuses. We stressed the importance of kind of the competitive makeup of the group last year, going into a rental property, and playing in a different environment, that our team was not constructed to be optimized, for lack of a better term, for that part. No excuses, right? We felt pretty good about it through June, and then things went in a different direction. I just think last year, it was as good an accommodation as you could have. We understand the reasons we were there, and there's things a lot more important than baseball. Having said that, purely from a baseball standpoint, home is home. And I think not just the roster construction to be built for a certain building, but just home being home is a bigger deal than maybe we had appreciated or thought of prior to doing it a year somewhere else. So I think we're looking forward to being back. I sure as heck hope the adjustment back isn't as challenging as Steinbrenner was when we lost 11 of 12 or whatever it was there early. I don't think it will be. And yeah, a lot of time was spent talking about what was wrong with the Trop when we were there, and then we left, and a lot more spent on what's right with the Trop as we go back.
I agree with Erik. I don't think there'll be a ton of adjustment. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement. I mean, certainly our ownership group has worked really hard to get it up and running. The city, the county, so many people have played a role. I mean, they're busting it to get everything done. And I mean, there's a lot of new that's going to be in there. So I think our players are going to walk in there and be very excited. I know I certainly will. Our staff will. And like Erik said, appreciate Steinbrenner Field. That was about as good as we could have asked for, but we like being at this home, here in a couple weeks.
Over here, Michael Epso with Bay News. How do you feel about the strengths of your lineup offensively, and maybe what are some things that you think you're going to have to work on?
Well, Erik just alluded to the 3 with Johnny, Cammy, and Yandy. Yandy's a proven commodity. Cammy and Johnny had tremendous seasons. Johnny had a tremendous season, even though he missed 6-7 weeks. So they're going to be hungry to go do it again. And then, whether it's Cedric Mullins, Gavin Lux, Jake Fraley, Chandler Simpson, who ignited our fan base at a pretty high level, to complement that core, there's a lot to be excited about. We got to get on the field and do it. But feel good with the guys that we have in and the excitement. It's refreshed energy coming in. You miss the guys that are not going to be here, but there's a lot of new faces, a lot of new handshakes, a lot of new relationships to build, and I think everybody's pretty excited by that.
Kevin, what is the message or goes through your mind when you walk in and see as many position players as you've seen this year come in? I know some is for the World Baseball Classic, some guys coming off injury, but it almost seems like these guys are hungry to kind of get rid of what happened last year and get in here and get to work.
You got a combination of new players that want to get to know their teammates real quick, and they're going to maybe get here a week early or whatever it is. And then you got a combination of guys that experienced what we went through last year and probably aren't very happy about it. They were incredibly accountable of not performing, none of us, myself included, not performing to the way that we wanted or the way we were capable of. And I think there's a lot of motivation to turn that around. Why not get in here a little bit earlier?
Kevin, Zach Oliveri, Wink News here in Fort Myers. First off, what you guys have been through a lot with, going to the Trop and then not being here the last few years. What's it like for you all to be in Charlotte County and this year especially to, that this is your home and you're going to your new home coming up here in a couple months? Yeah,
it feels like a sense of normalcy a little bit to have the combination of both. I don't recall the last year that we've had that. So hopefully everything continues to work out. I know we're trending in the right direction. We're going to enjoy our time here in Charlotte County, get on the road for 9 games, give a little bit more time for the Trop, and then welcome the Cubs to come in for opening day. I think a lot of people will be excited.
What's special about this atmosphere every year for you all?
We got a great fan base that come out and support us. I think, you can't beat the weather today. We got out here early in the morning and it was like, is the fog going to ever go away? And 5 minutes later, it's the most beautiful day of the year.
And lastly, on Shane, what was kind of your message to him as he was going through the challenges that he went through on and off the field the last 2 years?
Hurry up. No, kidding. No, look, man, nobody's more challenges feels that challenge more than the player or the pitcher. And you want to be sensitive to that. And the second injury was so unique. None of us had really we needed to be patient for him, because he certainly didn't want to be patient. He wanted to do everything he could to get out on the mound and contribute, compete, because that's who he is. And I think him having somewhat of a normal off season, it's going to bode really, really well for him once he gets on the mound here this year.
Erik, the clubhouse and the clubhouse vibe has always been really tight. It's like one of the best thing you can talk about the Rays every single year. How much did that go into when you started to put this roster together? Like when you started to look at some of the Martinez's and the guys, the Matts, is like how that would mesh. And Kevin, have you noticed early that that's been going on in the clubhouse? These guys getting to know each other.
Yeah, look, it's important. I think, this isn't new. I think this has been the case back over the many fortunate years that I've had here. I think our ceiling in any given year is going to more often than not be determined by the ascending talent, that's earlier in their career, they're best in front of them. And, what Cammy did last year, what Jonathan Around did last year, that's usually going to be the source of our ceiling. But I think the source of our success will be the veterans and the guys that have a lot of experiences underneath them here and elsewhere. And usually that's kind of the optimal mix, right? And you talk about the players that we brought in from outside organization. A lot of them happen to be from Cincinnati. That also is not part of the plan to become Cincinnati South. But look, those guys experienced postseason baseball a lot more recently than we have, right? And those are winning players. Cedric Mullins has won a lot. He's been through a lot in Baltimore. He went through their whole kind of valley up to their peak. They're great examples, and we've seen it. I mean, I can go back to, we're getting old here, but like the Erik Hinskys, Cliff Floyds in 2008, and turning around that culture, and they're having a winning season. There's just you need those guys that have been around to help you develop that belief, right? And I think it's especially important. The last 2 years haven't gone the way we've wanted. We've been below 500 both those years. In a blink of an eye, that can set in. There's a complacency that can come from that, and I think that's where like to what you talked about, these veteran guys can really help make sure that the standard stays where it needs to be, and the belief stays where it needs to be. This is a difficult decision, but there's a lot about this game we can measure, and we've never been shy about doing our best to measure what we can measure. But starting now through ideally deep into October, you're around each other every single day, and that can be exhausting. And you got to really care about the people around one another. And you got to really protect that sense of belief and that sense of competition. And these guys are going to be big for that and feel it already.
I mean, it's very early, but the feedback that we got on a lot of the players that are new to the organization, every bit of it was extremely positive. And I think maybe today the best example I saw was the pitchers that threw. Every one of the starters were sitting out there behind the screen supporting him. And that happens a lot, but I don't know if it happens when you don't know the guy that's on the mound and they're just getting to know each other. So that's a good sign for us.
Erik, going back to your comments on the roster construction and the excitement that's been generated, the reality is that the American League East is probably the toughest division in baseball. You take a look at Toronto in the World Series, Baltimore's improved, Boston, New York has his mentality. How do you begin to gain separation from these teams and to accentuate the kinds of things you're talking about?
Yeah, look, it's that's the AL East, right? That's not new this season. I think, if I'm not mistaken, a few years back, I think last year we won the division. Maybe there's 490 plus winners, in this division. It's just the way it is. In many respects, kind of surviving and thriving in this division over 162 could be a greater accomplishment than ultimately what happens in the postseason. It's really, really difficult to make the postseason in this division, let alone finish on top. I think for our team, we're always going to have to chart a little bit of a different course or a different path, to get there and to compete. We can't really follow in line with the other four teams, or we're probably going to finish in the vicinity of where our revenues are, right? So it's always about doing things a little bit different. I think, like I said, the particulars of this team, I think the pitching is going to be in a good space. We got some really good offensive performers that are supported by a lot of athletic run defend type profiles. It's going to probably start with run prevention. Our run prevention last year, I think there were 3 clubs, if I'm not mistaken, in the East that were all kind of in a similar spot in terms of runs allowed. We were one of them. Going back in Tropicana field, I think our defense, will be a little bit tighter with this group as it is. And offensively, we're going to be counting on those 3 big guys, but it's probably going to be more grinding at bats, getting on base, playing foot speed games, and winning tight ball games. So we didn't do a very good job of finding the insurance runs last year. And when those games stayed tight, we didn't do a good job of holding them. I think we're going to find some ways to do that better this year. And look, it's just day by day. There's no button to push to go compete. We just got to make each day count, get the most out of it, and try to get the ball to bounce our way a little bit more than it did last year.
Do you anticipate small ball being a style?
I think you're always – look, Cashy runs the club. I think there's no – the pendulum, there's not a philosophy swinging one way or the other. We're just trying to outscore opponents as many games as possible. I think – times last year when things were rolling and you had the Mangums and the Chandlers just, moving the ball all over the place. It's a lot of fun when you find space, playing that kind of baseball. I think this is one that there's a little bit more of a mix to the group, but, we'll see. I mean, it's probably we're going to have to do a really good job in tight games and take care of the baseball. And I think if we do that while being home, good things will happen. What exactly it looks like, probably a little lean towards the run prevention side, and that's okay. We just got to score more than the other team.
We've talked about him a couple of times here. Junior coming off such a special season. What have you heard about his off-season work, and what do you think is next for him?
I'm going to get him to play small ball. His off-season was tremendous. He worked really hard here locally in Tampa with a group of some really good players, and I think they motivated each other. Then he went back to the DR with his family, spent some time there, and now he's back. And it was a challenge to keep Junior from playing winter ball or taking it. He wanted to play. He wants to play. He wants to be ready. He wants to represent the Tampa Bay Rays and certainly the Dominican Republic and the WBC. But very pleased with how his body looks, how he's moving around, taking ground balls today at third, and he probably got more at bats than anybody in live.
2 other guys I'm going to lump together here, Carson Williams and Jacob Melton. What do you see as maybe their opportunity coming into camp after a little bit of big league time last year?
Yeah, I mean, I've not seen Jacob Melton at all, other than I've heard all of our staff rave about how hard he hits the ball. And I mean, in the cage, when you're knocking balls in the 110, 111, there's not a ton of people that do that in a batting cage. And I think right now we would all say that his defense and run ability is maybe his strongest part of his game. So excited to get him on the field and see what Carson, experienced last year might have been the best thing for him. I think it's best for both those guys come into camp, be yourselves, compete, and let's see where spring unfolds over the next couple weeks.
Erik, everybody's been waiting for Cedric Mullins to duplicate that season he had in 2021. Has he been judged too harshly over the last few years in terms of what he's actually done as opposed to compared to that other season?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty high bar, this season that he had in 21. I think, and what we've said to Cedric is you look at 23, 24, and 25 in Baltimore. Let's throw the Mets part aside. And he'd do the same. He's kind of battling through some stuff. But, that version of Cedric Mullins is more than enough, right, for us. Take some of the pressure off, stop trying. Don't worry about. Don't stop. I don't want to get in his head, but don't worry about being the 21 version. We will happily take and appreciate that 23, 24, 25 Baltimore version. It hits 15. It's dependable in center field. Plays it as clean as anybody. And is that kind of presence in the lineup and that kind of teammate. That's more than enough for us, I think, to make this thing go. And I think part of helping guys find success is just managing expectations. There's a lot of stress that comes with playing this game, and making sure they understand what we're asking of them is something that's achievable, and maybe they can do a little more is usually the best way to go to get the most out of them.
Are there any injuries other than Manuel Rodriguez? Are there any injuries that popped up as you're entering camp that we should know about with any of the players?
Not as of right now.
No hammates.
No
Yeah,
handmaids. Mike, that's unfortunate. That's
Yeah.
a little odd how that all came about, but no, not right now.
That's good. And then also, Kevin, do you realize or do you notice that Junior has taken on a bit of a leadership role? Do you kind of see that maturation process with him?
I think looking back at last year, I don't think Junior could have done any better of being a young leader, and he didn't force it. He was a leader because of the work, the intensity that he put into his work every day leading up to a game, how much he cared and how much he supported his teammates. You don't have to be the guy that tells somebody what to do. You can kind of develop into that a little bit, but I like the pace that Junior's at. There's no doubt we want him to be a big part of our club, our future, our leadership, taking young guys under the wing. You know, one thing's pretty cool. We have some minor league players here, and watching him interact with some of those young players that they might be close to him in age, and how they look at him and how he treats them is pretty special. It says a lot about Junior Caminero.
And also for either one of you, just bringing Kevin in to work with the outfielders and what obviously his impact has been with the organization, but how he can help, you know, your group out there, especially with a guy like Chandler or Justin.
Yeah, I mean, look, we went back and forth with KK. This is on year 2 of when he decided to retire, contemplating trying to get him out here, and it worked out in our favor. I mean, I think every outfielder, they're going to listen to what he has to say. He went about it at the highest level. He's still today the best center fielder I've ever seen play, and I got to do it on a nightly basis. So he's here to work with certainly Chandler, just to provide a couple bits. I think he said a couple nuggets. If I can provide 50 and he can receive 2 of them, then we're better off for it. He's going to be here, I believe, tomorrow, which is Friday, and then kind of we'll reassess, but appreciate his efforts. KK is just like he was as a player. He's throwing a ball against the wall at 6 a.m. Nobody's even here yet. But I did ask Joe Benj before I got down here. I said, how does everybody look? How do the bodies look? And this and that. And he goes, well, I can tell you nobody looks better than KK.
Kevin, there's comfort in having a closer who, has had 40 save seasons. You don't have that, but you do have 4 or 5 guys that you're probably comfortable pitching the 9th inning. Could you just talk about how that works for a manager? Not knowing which guy is going to throw the 9th inning on any given day.
Yeah, I feel like we've had success doing it both ways. We were very fortunate to have a guy like Pete Fairbanks that really manned that 9th inning very well. And he had a lot of success here, got huge outs for us. But I do think with this group that we have right now that it's, our righties are pretty neutral. Like to think that they can handle left-handed pitching well. Then you got our left-handed hitters well. And then you got Clev that is just dominant against lefties and righties for that matter. To have that versatility and, be fluid game to game might do us well. We'll see how it unfolds. But I agree. We've got a bunch of candidates. I mean, you said us pitching the back end of games. Clev's done it. Griffin Jacks has done it. Brian Baker's done it. They've all done it. And what we saw the years ago when we did it, they really supported each other. It was a pretty selfishness group that went about it. And I think there was some excitement. All right, how are we going to get these next 9 outs of this ball game tonight?